Picture this moment. It's 8:15 a.m., March 22nd, 2024. I'm walking into conference room B on the second floor of Great Lakes Manufacturing, and there's Ryan Mitchell, our new CTO, who's been here all of 8 weeks, sitting at the head of the table in a Tesla hoodie and designer jeans. Deanna Foster from HR is right beside him with that leather folder already open. I know immediately what's about to happen. But what Ryan doesn't know is that I've been carrying a signed document in my home office filing cabinet for 6 years. A document that's about to flip this entire conversation on its head. Let me back up and give you the whole story, because the context makes this so much better. My name is Howard Wallace. Most people call me Hank. I'm 48 years old, and I've been at Great Lakes Manufacturing for 18 years. We're a mid-sized automotive supplier here in Detroit, about 800 employees, making precision components for Ford, GM, and a few smaller OEMs. Nothing glamorous, but steady work that keeps the lights on. I got to the plant that Tuesday morning at 6:30 a.m., like I have every day for nearly 2 decades. Badged in through the main entrance, walked past the production floor where the third shift guys were wrapping up, and took the stairs up to the IT office. My desk sits in the corner by the server room, not exactly a corner office, but I can hear when something's wrong with the systems. That low hum when everything's running smooth, the slight change in pitch when drives are working harder than they should. After 18 years, those sounds are like a second language. Set down my coffee, fired up my workstation, and there it was. One calendar invite marked urgent, scheduled for 8:15 a.m.s. Subject line, role alignment discussion. Mandatory attendance. You know what that means? Nobody sends you a meeting with that kind of language unless they're about to change your world, and not in a good way. I clicked on it, attendees. Me, Ryan Mitchell, and Diana Foster. My stomach tightened up. Not panic, exactly, but that feeling you get when you know the conversation isn't going to go your way. Like when you hear that particular grinding sound from the production floor and you know line 2 is about to go down. Let me explain who I am at this company, because it matters for what comes next. Officially, I'm a senior manufacturing IT specialist. Level 4 on the technical ladder. My job description, if you actually looked at what HR has on file, says I'm responsible for workstation support, network maintenance, and system backup procedures. Standard IT stuff. My salary when I started in 2006 was $52,000. By 2024, I was making $89,000 base plus an 8% annual bonus if we hit our production targets. But here's the thing, and this is critical to understand, my actual job and my official job description haven't matched up in about 15 years. When you work somewhere for 18 years, especially in manufacturing IT, you end up owning things that nobody else wants to touch or knows how to fix. It starts small. You solve one problem that's blocking production. Then someone asks you to fix it again next month. Before you know it, you're the only guy in the building who understands how half the systems actually connect together. I was that guy. Let me give you some examples. Our entire ERP integration system, the backbone that connects our production schedules to inventory management to shipping. I built that in 2019 because our old system couldn't handle Ford's new supplier portal requirements. The old process was a nightmare, clerks manually entering data from printed reports, 3 different systems that didn't talk to each other, orders getting lost or double entered. We were spending 60 hours a week just on data entry and reconciliation. Took me 6 months of nights and weekends, but I built a system that automated the whole thing. Data flows from the production floor directly into inventory tracking, automatically generates shipping schedules, updates Ford's portal in real time. We went from 60 hours of manual work per week to maybe 10 hours of monitoring and exception handling. That's 50 hours saved every single week. At $35 per hour for clerical work, that's $91,000 per year in labor savings. Nobody asked me to do it. I just did it because watching people waste time on manual processes drives me crazy. Then there's the quality monitoring dashboard. We had this mess of different systems, one for dimensional checks, another for surface finish, manual logs for heat treating, separate databases for different product lines. Nothing talked to anything else. When Ford or GM wanted quality reports, it took our quality team 8 hours to compile data from 6 different sources. And half the time, by the time we found a problem, we'd already shipped bad parts. So in 2021, I built a unified system that pulls data from every inspection station on the floor and gives real-time quality metrics. Temperature sensors, dimensional measurements, surface finish readings, everything flows into one dashboard. Now, when a part measures outside tolerance, we know in 15 minutes instead of 4 hours. Our scrap rate dropped 30% in the first year just from catching problems faster. That saved us about 30 hours per week in quality reporting and rework. Another $54,600 per year in savings. The supply chain automation system. That's another one I somehow inherited. Started when our steel supplier kept screwing up delivery schedules. Their system would say steel was delivered. Our system would show it as pending, and nobody could figure out where the disconnect was. So I built interfaces between their system and ours. Then our tooling company wanted the same thing. Then our logistics partner. Before I knew it, I was the point of contact for every single vendor integration. Our steel supplier, our tooling company, our packaging supplier, our shipping company. If data needed to flow between their systems and ours, it went through systems I'd built and maintained. When contracts came up for renewal, they'd call me directly to make sure the integrations would work with whatever new system they were implementing. In 2023, I negotiated our steel contract renewal and restructured our inventory algorithms to optimize order timing based on production forecasts instead of static minimums. Reduced our steel inventory carrying costs by $180,000 per year while actually improving our stockout rate, but none of this was in my job description. Officially, I was still just the IT guy who fixed computers and backed up files. The thing is, I never complained. I liked solving problems. I liked knowing how all the pieces fit together. I liked being the guy people came to when something critical broke. And my old boss, William Porter, he got it. Bill had been our CTO since 2008, came up through engineering, understood manufacturing. Kay knew that in a plant like ours, everything connects to everything else. And if you don't understand those connections, you're flying blind. He'd tell me in reviews, Hank, you're the guy who keeps this place running behind the scenes. Corporate doesn't see what you do, but I do. Plant floor sees it. That's what matters. Bill understood that when you've got Ford auditors coming in, they don't care about your org chart. They want to see that your quality systems work, that your data is clean, that you can trace every part from raw material to shipping dock. And they want to see it work in real time, not some PowerPoint presentation. Bill retired in December 2023. That's when Ryan Mitchell showed up. Ryan was 29 years old, 19 years younger than me. Came from Tesla's manufacturing IT division in Fremont, with an MBA from University of Michigan and a head full of ideas about Industry 4.0 and smart factories. Had that Silicon Valley confidence, talked fast, used words like optimize and scale and leverage synergies. In his first all-hands meeting in January, he stood up there in his Tesla hoodie and started talking about eliminating inefficiencies, bringing accountability to role definitions, and optimizing human resources for maximum ROI. Said we were going to right-size the organization and create clear swim lanes for all personnel. I should have seen it coming. When somebody starts talking about people like their database entries that need optimization, you know what's next. He started asking questions right away. Who built the ERP integration? Who manages the quality dashboard? Who handles vendor data flows? Every answer that came back was Howard Wallace. And I could see it in his face during meetings, this look of confusion mixed with annoyance. Like he couldn't figure out why one person had his fingers in so many systems. In Silicon Valley, everything's compartmentalized. You've got your back-end engineers, your front-end engineers, your DevOps specialists, your data engineers. Everyone stays in their lane. But manufacturing isn't Silicon Valley. When line 2 goes down because a sensor isn't talking to the quality system, you don't have time to schedule a cross-functional meeting. You need someone who understands both the sensor and the system, and you need them now. Ryan didn't get that. To him, I was a guy doing 3 people's jobs, which meant either I was overworked and inefficient, or we were paying for redundant headcount. The questions kept coming. Why does one person control so many critical systems? What happens if Howard gets hit by a bus? Shouldn't these responsibilities be distributed across multiple team members? Don't we have single points of failure here? Valid questions, actually, but the wrong solutions. See, Bill Porter had thought about the bus scenario back in 2018. That's when he went to the board with what he called a key personnel risk mitigation strategy. He explained that I'd built several critical systems entirely on my own time, using knowledge and skills that weren't part of my standard job duties. If I left the company tomorrow, we'd be in serious trouble. So the board approved something called a key personnel retention agreement. It was separate from my employment contract. A side letter signed by me, Bill, and Patricia Cruz, who was board chair at the time. The agreement was pretty straightforward. It said that if I left the company voluntarily or was terminated for any reason, I retained intellectual property rights to all proprietary systems and integrations developed outside the scope of standard employment duties. Specifically, the ERP integration, the quality monitoring dashboard, the vendor automation systems, and 3 other platforms I'd built over the years. The company had a perpetual license to use them as long as I was employed there. But if I left, or if the company wanted to transfer ownership of those systems to another employee or modify them in ways that fundamentally changed their function, they had to get my written consent. And here's the key part. If I didn't give consent, the company had to either pay me fair market value for the intellectual property, defined as no less than twice the estimated annual cost savings generated by the systems, or stop using them entirely. It was basically an insurance policy. Bill wanted to make sure that if I ever left, the company would either have to pay me what the systems were actually worth, or face the reality of operating without them. Bill had buried this deep in the corporate records. It wasn't in my personnel file, wasn't in the standard contract repository. It was filed with the board minutes from Q2 2018 under Key Personnel Risk Mitigation Strategies. When Bill retired, he called me into his office one last time, handed me a manila envelope with my name on it. "Keep this safe," he said. "You might need it someday." Ryan's a smart kid, but he thinks everything can be solved with the right process and the right org chart. Some things can't be optimized away. I took the envelope home and stuck it in my filing cabinet without opening it. Figured it was just some retirement speech or company policy update. Wasn't until 2 months later, when Ryan started his role clarification project, that I actually looked inside. That's when I found the Key Personnel Retention Agreement, 6 pages of legal language that basically said I owned the systems that kept Great Lakes Manufacturing running. So March 22nd, 8:15 a.m., conference room B. I walked in and Ryan was already there in his Tesla hoodie, looking like he'd rather be debugging Python code than dealing with legacy manufacturing problems. Deanna had her laptop open and that leather folder in front of her. "Hank, thanks for coming," Ryan said. "Have a seat." I sat down across from them, adjusted my glasses, set my coffee on the table. "What's this about?" Diana opened the folder and slid a document across to me. "We're doing a comprehensive role audit across the IT department," she said, "making sure everyone's responsibilities align with their job descriptions and pay grades." I looked at the paper. It was my job description from 2006, the one that said workstation support, network maintenance, system backup procedures. Nothing about ERP integration, nothing about quality monitoring, nothing about vendor systems. Ryan leaned forward. "Hank, you've been here a long time. You're obviously a valued team member. But as we've been reviewing workload distribution, we've noticed that you've taken on responsibilities that really should be handled by engineering or escalated to management level." I just stared at him. The air conditioning kicked on, that familiar hum that meant the server room was maintaining temperature. Everything running smooth for now. The ERP integration, quality monitoring, vendor systems, these should be owned by our engineering team or managed at the director level. We're bringing in a systems integration manager next month, Carlos Mendez, and he'll be taking ownership of these platforms. You'll transition everything over the next 4 weeks. I felt this strange calm settle over me. Like when a machine stops making noise and you know something's about to break, but you're not sure what yet, so you want me to stop maintaining the systems I built. "We want you to focus on what you were hired to do," Ryan said, and he actually smiled when he said it. "Stick to your job description. You'll still have plenty to keep you busy. Workstation support, network maintenance, backups. That's important work." Diana nodded enthusiastically. "This isn't a demotion or anything like that. Your title and salary stay the same. We're just clarifying responsibilities to create better operational efficiency." I looked at both of them for a long moment. The HVAC system cycled off, and in that brief silence, I could hear the subtle electric hum of the fluorescent lights. Everything running on schedule, following its programmed logic. Then I said, "Okay." Ryan blinked. "Okay?" "Yeah," I said. "If you want me to stick to my job description, I'll stick to my job description." "Great," Diana said, looking relieved like she'd expected me to argue or make a scene. "We'll set up transition meetings with Carlos once he starts." I stood up, grabbed my coffee, and walked out. Didn't slam the door or storm off. Just walked back to my desk like it was any other Tuesday. Here's what they didn't know. What only Bill Porter knew. because he was the one who set it up. I went back to my desk, opened my email, and I did exactly what Ryan asked. I stopped doing everything that wasn't in my job description. First thing I did was change my voicemail. This is Howard Wallace, Senior Manufacturing IT Specialist. I'm available to assist with workstation support, network maintenance, and system backup procedures. For all other technical issues, please contact Ryan Mitchell or escalate through your department manager. Then I updated my Slack status, available for workstation support, network maintenance, system backups. All other requests should be directed to management. ERP integration issues, not my problem anymore. Carlos Mendez would own that when he started in 3 weeks. Until then, well, it wasn't in my job description to maintain it. Quality dashboard maintenance. Outside my scope, Ryan could figure out how to keep it running. Vendor system problems. Those rolled up to management now. AWS configuration issues. Talk to Ryan. Steel supplier data sync problems. Not my department. I printed out my 2006 job description and taped it to my monitor. Workstation support, network maintenance, system backup procedures. That's what they wanted, that's what they'd get. And I waited. It took 4 days. On Monday, March 26th at 11:20 a.m., Jeffrey Stone from Plant Operations messaged me on Slack. Jeff's a good guy, been running line 3 for about 8 years. Knows his equipment inside and out. Hank, the quality dashboard is showing error codes on line 3. Dimensional measurements aren't updating. Can you take a look? I stared at the message for a few seconds. Jeff probably had no idea what had happened in that conference room last Thursday. Far as he knew, I was still the guy who fixed things when they broke. That's outside my job description now. I typed back. You'll need to contact Ryan Mitchell or wait for Carlos Mendez to start. There was a long pause. I could practically see Jeff staring at his screen trying to figure out what I was talking about. What, Hank? We've got Ford auditors coming Wednesday. If we can't show real-time quality data, we'll fail the inspection. I understand the situation, I replied. Per role clarification meeting on March 22nd, quality monitoring systems are now managed at the director level. You should escalate to Ryan Mitchell immediately. Another pause. Then, Hank, what the hell is going on? I'm focusing on my core responsibilities as outlined in my job description. Quality monitoring falls outside that scope. Jeff tried calling me directly. I let it ring 4 times before picking up. Hank, I don't know what kind of corporate politics are happening upstairs, but I've got a line down in Ford coming in 2 days. I hear you, Jeff. But I've been instructed to stick to my job description. Quality monitoring is proprietary tooling I developed outside my standard duties. That's now owned by engineering management. Can you just fix it today and sort out the politics later? I wish I could help, I said. And I meant it. Jeff was good people. But sometimes you have to let the machine break before anyone understands how it was working. You need to call Ryan directly. He did. At 1:30 p.m., Ryan called me. I could hear the stress in his voice. Hank, what's going on with the quality system? I'm not sure, I said. What's the specific issue? Jeff says the dimensional measurements aren't updating and you won't look at it. The quality dashboard is proprietary tooling I developed outside my standard duties. Per our meeting on March 22nd, I'm focusing on my job description now. Quality systems fall under engineering management. There was a pause. I could hear him typing in the background. Hank, I didn't mean you couldn't help with critical issues. I'm helping, I said. I've processed 8 workstation tickets today and completed the weekly backup verification. That's what's in my job description. Another pause. Longer this time? Look, can you just fix it today? We'll sort out the transition details later. I'll take a look, I said. I didn't take a look. At 3:15 p.m., plant operations had to shut down line 3 because they couldn't verify quality metrics for the Ford audit. 4 hours of downtime. At $15,000 per hour in lost production, that's $60,000 right there. Plus the risk of failing the audit, which could put our entire Ford contract in jeopardy. But hey, I was sticking to my job description. That was Monday. On Tuesday, our steel supplier's automated delivery system stopped working. The interface I'd built between their scheduling system and our inventory management was throwing authentication errors. Normally, I'd just log into the vendor portal and reset the connection. It takes about 10 minutes if you know what you're doing. But vendor integrations weren't in my job description. Ryan spent 3 hours on the phone with the supplier trying to figure out what was wrong. Finally got them to manually process our orders. But we'd already lost our just-in-time delivery window. Had to pay for expedited shipping to avoid a stockout on line 1. Cost $8,000 in shipping fees, plus 6 hours of overtime for receiving to handle the off-schedule delivery. On Wednesday, the ERP system started throwing database errors. Nothing catastrophic, just a stored procedure that needed updating. I'd written the original code, so I knew exactly what was wrong and how to fix it. 15-minute job, max, but Carlos Mendez didn't start until next week and I was sticking to my job description. The errors cascaded through the system. Production schedules couldn't sync with inventory levels. Shipping couldn't generate accurate pick lists. By end of shift, we had parts ready to ship, but no way to tell which orders they belonged to. Meanwhile, I processed 12 workstation tickets, updated 3 driver installations, and verified backup completion on all servers. My job description work was caught up for the week. By Thursday morning, we had Ford quality auditors on site. Our production schedule was falling behind, and our inventory system was showing counts that didn't match what was actually on the floor. The ERP errors had created a cascade of data inconsistencies that would take hours to manually reconcile. At 2:45 p.m. Thursday, I got a calendar invite. Emergency meeting, system continuity, scheduled for 4 p.m., attendees, me, Ryan, Diana, Scott Reynolds, VP of Operations, and 2 people I didn't recognize. This wasn't a department meeting anymore. This was DEFCON 1. I showed up at 3:58 p.m. Ryan was already there, looking like he hadn't slept. His Tesla hoodie was wrinkled, hair messy. Scott Reynolds was typing furiously on his laptop, probably trying to calculate how much money we were hemorrhaging. Deanna had the same leather folder from before, but now there were additional documents spread across the table. The 2 people I didn't know turned out to be Patricia Cruz, former board chair and current board advisor, and Alan Weber, outside legal counsel. Patricia was in her early 60s, silver hair, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Alan looked like every corporate lawyer I'd ever met. Expensive suit, expensive briefcase, expensive attitude. When lawyers show up to IT meetings, you know someone's in deep trouble. Ryan started before I'd even sat down. "Hank, we need to discuss what's been happening this week." "Okay," I said, settling into my chair and adjusting my glasses. "The quality system is down. The ERP integration is failing. We've got Ford auditors questioning our data integrity. Production is behind schedule. And every time we ask for your help, you say it's not your job." "That's correct," I said. "You told me to stick to my job description. I'm sticking to my job description." Scott leaned forward. He'd been VP of Operations for 6 years, came up through plant management. Good guy who understood that when the floor stops running, nothing else matters. "Hank, you built these systems. We need you to maintain them." "I understand," I said. But on March 22nd, Ryan explained that these responsibilities should be handled by engineering or management level. "I'm just following the new organizational structure." Alan Weber opened his briefcase and pulled out a legal pad. "Mr. Wallace, are you refusing to perform work that's essential to company operations?" "No, sir," I said. "I'm performing all work outlined in my official job description. If the company wants me to perform additional duties, we should discuss updating my role and compensation accordingly." Patricia Cruz was watching me carefully. She hadn't said anything yet, but I could see the wheels turning. She was the one who'd been board chair back in 2018. Ryan looked like he was about to explode. "What would it take to get you to just keep doing what you've been doing while we sort this out?" I reached into my bag and pulled out the manila envelope Bill Porter had given me 6 months ago. I opened it and slid the document across the table. "Before we talk about that," I said, "I think you should read this." Ryan picked it up. His face went from frustrated to confused to something approaching panic as he scanned the pages. "What is this?" "Key Personnel Retention Agreement. Signed in 2018 by me, William Porter, and Patricia Cruz. It's filed with the board minutes from Q2 2018 under Key Personnel Risk Mitigation." Patricia's eyes went wide. She definitely remembered now. Ryan read through it again, then handed it to Alan. Alan read it twice, slowly, making notes on his legal pad. "Is this enforceable?" Ryan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Alan looked at Patricia. "Did the board actually approve this agreement?" Patricia nodded slowly. "Yes. Bill brought it to us as a risk mitigation measure. Howard had developed several critical systems entirely on his own initiative, outside his standard job duties. We were concerned about single points of failure if he left the company. And the board agreed to let him retain IP ownership?" Alan asked. The company retains a perpetual license to use the systems, Patricia said, but intellectual property ownership remains with Howard. It was designed to incentivize retention while protecting company interests. Ryan's voice was getting higher. It says he owns the IP for systems he built outside his job description. Alan set the document down and looked directly at me. According to this agreement, if the company wants to transfer ownership of these systems to another employee or materially modify them without Mr. Wallace's consent, he can either demand fair market value defined as no less than twice the estimated annual cost savings or revoke the license entirely. The room went dead silent. You could hear the HVAC system cycling, the fluorescent lights humming, the distant sound of line 1 running behind schedule. Ryan stared at me. "You're saying we can't use the systems you built unless you give permission? That's what the contract says," I replied. Scott had gone pale. "Hey, the ERP integration alone processes 300 transactions per day. Without that system, we're back to manual entry. That's 12 hours of overtime every single day." "I know," I said. "I built it." "The Ford audit," Scott continued, "if we can't demonstrate real-time quality tracking, we'll lose certification. That puts our entire contract at risk. $4.2 million annually." Patricia stood up. "I need to make some calls. Ryan, Scott, let's reconvene tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Howard, can you keep the systems running for 24 hours while we work this out? If I'm being compensated appropriately for work outside my job description, yes.
We'll authorize consulting rate, $150 per hour, effective immediately for any work on systems outside your standard duties." I nodded. "That works." They met the next morning without me. Found out later from Scott that Patricia had called an emergency board meeting via video conference. She'd presented them with two options: pay me what the systems were actually worth and give me the authority to match, or lose the systems entirely and spend the next year rebuilding, while potentially losing major contracts. The math was pretty straightforward. The ERP integration saved 50 hours per week at $35 or $91 annually. Fair market value, $182,000. The quality dashboard saved 30 hours per week, $54,600 annually. Fair market value, $109,200, and the vendor integration systems saved $180,000 per year in inventory and logistics costs. Fair market value, $360,000. Total, $651 and $200 and $200 in RN dollars and REC it dollars. It's rever into $651 and $200 and $107 dollars and per year in inventory and logistics, or $100 and per year in $477 and $40,000. $3,100 and upper and reslashed at $4,951 and on. But I wasn't trying to bankrupt the company. At 11:30 a.m. on Friday, March 29th, I got an email from Diana. Subject: updated offer, principal systems integration manager, $500,000, paid over 36 months, base salary $125,000, 15% bonus target. New title: principal systems integration manager, direct report to Scott Reynolds. Final approval authority on any changes to systems I developed. And at the bottom, something I hadn't asked for, 5,000 stock options at current fair market value, vesting immediately. I signed it the following Monday at 9 a.m. in Diana's office. Patricia was there, Scott was there, Ryan was not. The first payment, $13,088.89 hit my account 2 weeks later. I sat in my car in the company parking lot and stared at my phone for a long time. 25 years of mortgage payments gone in one deposit. Ryan resigned 6 weeks later. Heard through Scott that he'd taken a director role at a startup in Austin. Something about autonomous manufacturing systems. On his last day, he didn't say goodbye to anyone, just cleaned out his desk and left. Carlos Mendez ended up reporting to me instead. Turned out to be a really smart guy with good instincts. We rebuilt 2 other legacy systems that had been held together with duct tape and hope, and integrated everything into a unified platform that could actually scale with the company's growth. Great Lakes passed the Ford audit with flying colors, renewed our contract for another 3 years. Scott threw a party in the break room with actual champagne. Even brought in a cake that said systems integration success. 2 years later, in October 2026, Great Lakes got acquired by a larger manufacturing group for $180 million. My stock options were worth $47,000 after taxes. Not life-changing money, but a nice bonus for doing what I'd always done. Today, I'm still here. Same plant, different ownership, but the machines still hum the same way when everything's running right. My title is Principal Systems Integration Manager. I lead a team of 4 engineers now. We're expanding the integration platform across all the acquired facilities, 6 plants in 4 states. It's challenging work, and for the first time in my career, they actually listen to me in planning meetings. The $500,000 got paid out in March 2027. I put most of it in index funds and paid off the mortgage. My wife Linda and I are talking about that European vacation we've been putting off for 15 years. Maybe next spring. Ryan Mitchell, LinkedIn shows he's doing consulting now. His startup folded after about 14 months. Couldn't secure Series B funding. I don't keep tabs on him, but the manufacturing world is smaller than you think. Patricia Cruz retired from the board last year. She sent me a LinkedIn message on her last day. Bill Porter knew exactly what he was doing with that agreement. Companies forget that institutional knowledge matters more than org charts. Glad it worked out the way it did. Here's what I learned from this whole experience. Most companies don't actually understand what keeps them running. They see the revenue, the contracts, the quarterly reports. They don't see the invisible infrastructure, the system someone built 5 years ago that everyone depends on but nobody remembers. They don't see the 20 years of accumulated knowledge that walks out the door when you reorganize people into boxes. When you have that knowledge, when you're the person who built those systems and understands how they connect, you have power. Real power. Not the kind that comes from titles or org charts, but the kind that comes from being essential. You just need to know when and how to use it. Ryan thought he was optimizing, bringing clarity, eliminating inefficiencies, but he didn't take the time to understand what he was optimizing away. He saw a senior guy doing too much and wanted to put me back in a clearly defined box. What he didn't see was that the box was way too small for what I'd actually built. I don't think he was malicious. I think he was just careless. And in manufacturing, carelessness costs money. Sometimes it costs careers. Sometimes it costs companies. I didn't set out to destroy his career. I really didn't. I just did exactly what he asked me to do, stuck to my job description. Turns out when you tell someone to stop doing the work that actually keeps everything running, they will. And then you get to find out what happens when 20 years of invisible expertise suddenly becomes very, very visible. The work nobody sees. That's always the work that matters most when everything falls apart. Remember that next time someone tries to optimize you into a smaller box. They say knowledge is power, but that's only half the equation. Minus the real power comes from being the only one who knows how to keep the lights on when everyone else is fumbling in the dark. In the end, respect isn't something you can reorganize into existence or optimize through process improvement. It's something you earn by being indispensable when it matters most.